Hi, everybody. Welcome to HR Huddle this Monday afternoon. I'm Jennifer Wilson with Convergence Coaching, and with me today is my good friend and work colleague, Samantha Mansfield. Hi, Samantha.
Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm so glad that we're together to process all things talent related for our HR leaders and all the other leaders who focus on talent in the accounting profession. And in this conversation today, Samantha and I, we had an opportunity last week to talk about leadership roadblocks. And we talked about a number of things, but we kept tripping on the word confidence. We kept finding it being this thing that just an idea, a concept, a phrase, an ideal that we weren't really going deep on. We were talking about other things, but we would touch it. And so then we said, hey, maybe someday we should do a session on confidence. And Samantha chose or picked a bunch of different ideas for today, and one of them was confidence. And that's where we landed. So we're going to talk about like the leadership roadblock and stumbling block of really all of us at different times in our lives and different moments in our days and weeks where we may lack confidence and what to do about it. What are the ideas around confidence? And so, I'm going to start us off, and then Samantha will take us wherever she chooses on the subject. But I do want to say that, I know in life, some people seem really confident and others seem more nervous. Their voice may shake or their hands may shake when they're giving their opinion, or they may stay very quiet in a room, and we may read their quiet as a lack of confidence or hanging in the shadows or something. There's a bunch of different ways that confidence or a lack of confidence may manifest itself. But I do want to start us by saying everybody feels it sometimes. And so I just like, no matter how experienced you are, no matter how comfortable you seem, when you're looking at other people and you're thinking, man, they must not have these feelings of stage fright or fears of public speaking or speaking up in a meeting or committing to run something by yourself, or that you look at other people and think they don't feel like I do. I have butterflies. I feel sick that I'm even saying yes to this. As we are leading into it, it's getting more and more, nervous or anxious. And we feel very alone with that feeling. It's almost embarrassing. That's how we feel about it. Like, gosh, I'm the only one, and I really probably can't tell anybody about it. So we suffer. And I just wanted to get it out in the open. We all feel it sometimes, and different things make us feel that way. And one of the things I try to say to myself and I try to coach others on is what makes you feel that way. When you start to have those anxious feelings, what's causing that crisis of confidence? And is it a certain kind of activity or a certain technical matter or a certain type of client or personality that you're interfacing with? What are your triggers for that lack of confidence? And so that would be the first place I would start. Everybody has this, no matter how old or how awesome. And there are triggers. Let's figure out what they are. So what do you think?
No, I fully agree. And one of the things I really recommend to identify those triggers is to just write them down. You can have a little scrap piece of paper, or maybe it's a note on your desktop of your computer, or whatever your method is that you prefer. But truly take a moment to write it down, because it can be hard to go back and assess at the end of the day or the end of the week and try and figure out, gosh, what was that? What was that event that all of a sudden I just felt it in myself? And to help you get past it and to be able to develop the confidence, it really helps to identify what is the scenario, or is it a person, or is it an event? Is it a client? Whatever it might be that you're running into, that confidence becomes the issue. And one of the things I would add to what you're saying, because you started saying getting there, and it just made me start being ever mindful of the comparison. And that, gosh, one of the things that can really affect our confidence is when we start close to other people. And so as HR professionals, as leaders, as parents, I think one of the key things we need to watch out for is not doing the comparison piece, because you got to stop that in yourself too of, man, do I lead the same way as that person? Or, I'm not going to be, I wouldn't lead the same way, or I wouldn't be able to do it exactly that same way. And that's okay. And actually, that's a good thing, because differences are a good thing. And so often we're trying to compare ourselves to how somebody else would do it, or how they execute. And it hurts that confidence. So I just wanted to say, if you catch yourself, that's one thing, just stop and help yourself on the confidence factor.
And that I love that. And this comparative thing, it's like, I want to be like you. And what we really should be thinking is, I want to make a difference like you, or I want to achieve the agreed upon goal on this engagement like you would. Not, I want to be like you while I do it. And
Right.
there's, because genetically we're not, unless you are a twin or something. We aren't gonna be like them. We just need to end up sort of reaching the same objectives or performance goals. And I just think sometimes that confidence and the waning of confidence when I compare to you, to anybody, and I see myself lacking in something, but what I may be lacking, I may also have something that you don't have in another area. And those things will complement one another, and they will make us successful. So I think that's wonderful, Samantha. Another thing about confidence is that we don't talk about it very often. I think we at Convergence talk about it way more than the average bears out there. But in life, it's not discussed much. This inner dialogue that we all have, the inner conversation that whispers to us subliminally while we're quiet. It also talks to us while we're listening. Sometimes it says things like, you're listening to this live stream perhaps, and it says, wonder what's in email, or wonder what's for dinner, or wonder how many minutes this will be. We have an inner dialogue, every one of us does. And we won't get into the psychology of that. There's different psychological views on this inner dialogue, and whether there's one or more and all that. We're not doing that. We just call it the inner voice, inner dialogue, little voice, the thing that talks to me. And most of us have an inner dialogue that is not fully supportive. It's not our biggest cheerleader consistently. It's probably one of our biggest, most significant critics. It is shaped over time. So it isn't that we were just born with it and it's exactly the way that it was at birth, but it does come out maybe more cynical or more positive, depending on our personality wiring. But then we get messages from teachers and from parents and from siblings and others, and those messages go in and start to make up, our overall view of self. And that view of self is very acutely aware of shortcomings or perceived shortcomings. It may have wished that you were an inch taller or an inch shorter. It may have wished that you had smaller feet or bigger feet. It has criticisms about you that I use two physical criticisms, but it has all kinds, wishes you were funnier, or that you would stop using inappropriate humor, or whatever. And it's got a lot to say about you. And then it has a lot to say about other people too, and other things and other circumstances. And it's watching and talking all the time. And most of us aren't present to it. We're not saying to ourselves, I wonder what my inner voice is saying right now. Instead, it's whispering in this subliminal way, and it creates feelings. It creates, like a higher increased heart rate, or sweaty palms, or a dry mouth, or it can make us feel down. It can make us feel sad. It can make us feel excited. It's got all this influence on our feelings. And when people are lacking confidence, one of the things we do as coaches is we say, hey, let's start paying attention to what your inner dialogue is saying. During these trigger points where you know that you feel anxious or you feel less confident, what's it saying to you? And Samantha suggested writing that down, writing both the trigger points. I feel less confidence with this circumstance. So you could remember it later. But also, what is it whispering? What's it saying?
Mm-hmm.
And when I get people who lack confidence to finally kind of cough up the stuff it says, it's very awkward. I mean, sometimes it says something like, you might not be smart enough for this job, which is such a horribly uncool thing to say to somebody. And I mean it. And I've had people finally say to me, Jen, I'm afraid I'm not smart enough. And they almost cry, because it's so personal and so awful. And yet, once they say it, then we both can go, huh, that's horrible that it says that. What a mean, awful inner voice. And we can stand separate from it because the inner voice's truth is not the truth. It might be like every once in a while it says something like, I smell smoke, check for fire, and then we want to listen to it. But a lot of times it's just saying some kind of rib kicking, mean stuff to us that isn't valid. And it's been kind of keeping us small.
Yeah.
And I want us to pay attention to that inner voice. And so much so that when I first, I've coached leaders with this a long time, but when I discovered I had a child who was super anxious, I started to realize, instead of medicine and things, I was going to try to help her figure out what the inner voice was saying. She was, pretty young and it was awful and scary, the stuff it said to her. Mm-hmm. And so we named it a separate name. She named it. I suggested she name it. And she gave it a name completely separate from her. And then she could say, this is what that is saying to me. And we both knew it was an inner dialogue. We weren't saying it was an imaginary friend. We knew it's the inner voice. But for her to give it a separate name meant that it wasn't valid. It's just like some friend at school was saying it. It didn't have to be the truth. And that helped really diffuse the influence and power. Plus, just saying it out loud to me or to someone else, just saying what it says, it's so easy to look at it and say, that's pretty mean or pretty dramatic or pretty scary or pretty awful. That's not really valid. Mm-hmm. And it takes the power of it away. So those things can really help with confidence.
No, absolutely. And what it can also do is when we speak of confidence and people are giving you compliments and saying you are strong at this, man, if you catch yourself saying, oh, well, they're just being nice, or, well, yeah, but really, I could be so much better at this. That's one of those moments to catch yourself and say, you know what, that inner voice is being critical. And I can embrace that somebody sees this as a strength in me. Mm-hmm. And I can own that. And I was in a recent conversation about this comparison of humility and confidence. And we can be humble and be confident, right? So you can take that feedback and say, gosh, wow, people see this in me. I don't see myself as great as that, right? But that's nice to know that people think that is a strength of mine. And that I don't have to be cocky or arrogant by accepting that people appreciate that about me and what I bring to the table. And I can still be humble, but I also can be confident that, hey, this is a uniqueness. And this is something that maybe I bring to the team, or maybe I bring to leadership that not everybody else has. And that's a way that you can build that confidence there, and still know I can still get better. I'm glad that they appreciate that in me. I still can improve. That's wonderful. But don't let it take it to the point of I just can't even accept the compliment because I just see that I need to get better. And I think the other piece with confidence that we want to be mindful of is that confidence is important because it's how people will also hear you. If there's a lack of confidence in all decisions that you make, or in the way that you present an idea, then if you're delivering it without confidence, then people are going to immediately start to question it. And again, it's not to say you're not engaging in a dialogue where maybe there are things to discuss, but at the same time, if you can't state it with confidence, then you're starting so much further back in being able to make any kind of progression or to earn trust in really what your knowledge and your skills are. And that's why confidence is such an important thing, and not something where we can say, well, is it really that important? I mean, isn't humility or those things better? They're both important, but it's really hard to be able to get people to trust and come with you if you can't demonstrate confidence when you're speaking and you're engaging with others.
I agree, Samantha. And I think that the confidence you and I are speaking about today isn't arrogance.
Exactly.
Arrogance is I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I'm not listening. I know it all or something. And none of us is advocating that we develop that strong a sense of confidence that it's arrogant. But you're right. Leaders have to display or demonstrate confidence in the direction that we're headed, in the plan that we've hatched, in our approach to these services. If we seem wishy-washy, our people will feel wishy-washy, or our clients will feel uncertain as to whether they can trust our advice or whatever it may be. And so we want to have that, that confidence and direction. That doesn't mean confidence without listening, confidence without feedback. We want to be collaborative. We can be confident and collaborative, and here's where I think we're starting, but what do you all think? That's a perfectly acceptable way to interact, but still to take a position.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love what you're saying there. And I think also related to confidence that we need to recognize that I have to work on my confidence, develop it, understand the psychology of confidence, understand how to improve my own, because I need to coach other people in it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the sayings is that the coach has to believe in the ability of the coachee before the coachee believes in their ability themselves. Mm-hmm. And that means I have to develop my own confidence, but also share my confidence with others. Mm-hmm. And if I am not confident, then how could I say, I know you're feeling afraid, but I have every confidence that you can do this. I know you're ready. And so you might be thinking in this humble conversation that Samantha was having, like, I don't have to be that confident. Well, you need to be confident enough that you can begin to share it with team members, with clients, with fellow collaborators, with your children, mm-hmm. So that their confidence will grow in yours. Mm-hmm. And so it is something for us to pay attention to and work on. We can't be wimpy. We can't be wishy-washy. We can't be uncertain. Now, that doesn't mean we always have to say, I know exactly what we should do. Sometimes we don't know. And it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know what we should do. What do you all think? Or I don't know what we should do, but here are some ways we could devise a plan together. Here's some additional research we should do, or some surveying, or some study, or whatever, So I'm not saying always act like you have the answers. That's not sharing confidence, but it's having enough that people that follow you can see you're not just confident in the plan, you're confident in me. Mm-hmm. And because you are, I'm standing a little straighter and a little taller, and I'm feeling a little bit like maybe I could try this thing.
And I think it takes confidence to say, I don't know.
Yes.
There's, because that's one of those pieces too, that sometimes when you see some of the least confident people, they avoid that phrase because it's speaking to the heart of their fear, which is, now they know I don't know. So no, it feeds that lack of security even more, right? And so that's actually a signal that if there's somebody that really struggles or they're going to grasp for every answer that they can instead of having to say, I don't know. That very much is a signal that they actually are lacking confidence. And to be able to genuinely say, I am not sure on that, but we're going to find an answer. And that might take us talking together. That might take us breaking and going and doing research, whatever that is. But I just appreciated you saying that, because I think it's one of those pieces that we fear that shows lack of confidence, when I think in actuality, it's the complete opposite.
I agree. That's fun. Samantha, as soon as you said it, I was like, yes, right into the sweet spot of my big fear box. And so as we're thinking about closing up here, we need to understand the triggers of our confidence. Where are the places I feel like I'm on the weakest or softest footing? Mm-hmm. And we need to stop and examine what the inner dialogue is saying. And one of the things to think about, if you're like, I don't really know where to start with that, ladies, what are you afraid of? What do you fear most? When I'm scared, I'm afraid to do that. Okay. Thank you for being so straight about being afraid. That's huge. But what are you afraid will happen?
Yeah.
And then what would happen if that happened? Those are the kinds of questions I ask my coachees, and we work through that fear together to identify both the triggers and the inner anxiousness and the inner dialogues, rib kicking, nasty things it's been saying to us for most of our lives, and start to diffuse those things, start to put them to bed, dispute them even, put them in their place. So it's super fun to coach people into confidence. There's almost nothing better than to watch that, that really big opening that happens with people, the big breakthrough when they start to think, I'm okay here. I'm going to be okay. I can do this. So anyway, we think this is worthy of further discussion. We'd love your feedback on it. We'd love to know what you've done from a strategy perspective to gain confidence, to coach confidence in others. Love to know what other topics you'd like to bring into the HR Huddle. We'd be happy to hear from you in social. And we really appreciate you tuning in again today. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Caroline, for running the back end on this. And thanks, everybody, for attending. Bye now.
Good afternoon.